Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of WagMe TV. Episode 8 today. I had to miss the last one because I was on vacation, but I'm very happy and very excited to be back with the absolute fellas. You already know we got the one and only, the Doctor, Doc Mata. We got the All-American, Ev Smith.
We missed you, bro.
I missed you guys too. And last but not least, the NFT Lord himself, Alex Garcia. Damn, yeah, I missed you boys last week, but we're back and we're ready to get after it. You guys crushed it last week, though. A lot of I got to watch it out in Portugal. A lot of really interesting topics, a lot of good macro talk, some interesting NFT worlds talk, and yeah, we're back for episode 8. So it's been a pretty, kind of range bound few weeks. How are you guys feeling about the markets right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably all have the same sentiment. It's kind of a sideways market, a lot of up and down. Yeah, I feel like we're kind of in this weird period where we're starting these interest rate hikes. The Fed announced that in May they're going to do that 0.5% raise, and that's more than what they had originally projected. So the plan from here on out or at post that raise is kind of up in the air. You don't know if it's going to continue to be 5 more raises or if they're going to cut back and how the markets will respond. So I don't know, kind of feels like a sideways market. We're in this point where we're just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like kind of what everyone expected out of 2022 so far, right? Just kind of sideways chop, like Evan said. It seems like we find these little areas and then we stay within that. Like I felt like we bounced right off of 39 pretty nicely, 39K, and just kind of was like staying right around this 40K mark. So it should be interesting to see where we go from here. It looks like the chart with that we just pulled up here, it looks like we're still kind of having those higher lows, which is, I believe, a good sign. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, I mean, if we can continue to do that, I feel like that's pretty nice for us. I mean, we've had everything thrown at this asset, right? Over the last couple of months between war and I'm not even going to list everything. So I feel like it's been a ton of stuff.
I feel like we've gone through it,
Yeah. So it's just like, it's for everything that's been thrown at it, for it to still be at 40-ish K, 41 now, I guess. Can't really be upset, but definitely not the exciting market that everyone's typically used to in the crypto space. That's for sure.
Yeah, Bitcoin has held up stronger than I thought it would, to be honest, which is a really, really pleasant surprise. I'm really happy about that. The one thing, like more from like a macro standpoint, aside from the rate hikes and like the Fed, is with the Shanghai lockdowns. I know, Evie, I think you were mentioning this last week, but basically like the first like economic effect is supposed to take place like in the next couple of weeks, because right now, like a lot of the shipping routes and like shipments that are being halted at Shanghai, which is like one of the biggest places to import for China and to export, like all those ships are kind of getting like clogged up there like right now. So basically the theory is that a lot of that supply shock and price effect is going to come back within like the next few weeks. So it'll be interesting to see if that's going to have an effect on the market as well. But it's crazy what's going on there.
Yeah, and I know that Tesla has a large factory there, and I believe some other auto manufacturers. So as if the car industry wasn't already struggling enough with the prices, they're going to get hit again. So it'll be interesting to see if that continues to stay inflated. I know that was one of the major drivers of inflation that came out in the Fed's notes last month or previously, the last meeting. So I figure that'll stay, gas will stay, and then we'll just have to see how some of the other factors do in the next coming months here.
Speaking of the Tesla factory, I'll share my screen really quickly. Did y'all see any of this stuff? I thought this was all really interesting. Like, look at this headline. Tesla Shanghai factory will reportedly force employees to sleep at work.
Wow.
Like, it's just kind of like, really aggressive, but I think the whole main point of it, I haven't I don't know Gizmodo, like I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's real or what. But I think this one kind of sums it up pretty nicely. It's really just laying out these really stringent measures or processes for them to basically reopen very slowly. So
Right.
I guess that's a good sign, but who knows, man? World's a crazy place.
For our listeners that didn't listen to the previous podcast, this is due to China's no COVID policy, where they basically say if any COVID is detected or starting to increase in an area, they're going to fully shut down the district. So that's kind of what's been happening in Shanghai the last couple of weeks.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I've been trying to, just like everyone else, make sense of everything that's going on. And it really just seems like all eyes are on the Fed. But what has caught me a little bit off guard is that usually it's like these big Fed meetings and stuff that everyone pays attention to. And then like between the Fed meetings, there's not that much action. What's interesting is that almost every word you'll have, you can look at the economic calendar. So I'll pull it up here. So you can pull up the economic calendar and, each day you've got, on Monday, there was Bullard who spoke. Today, this dude spoke. Tomorrow we have the Atlanta Fed president speaking, in San Francisco Fed, right? Like every word from these Fed people is being watched with a triple magnifying glass microscope. Like everything is being inspected. And so that's something that I'm not really used to seeing that much in the market, which has stood out to me. And I think, like, for example, on Monday, Bullard came out and was like, 75 basis point rate hike is something that we would consider in an extreme circumstance, but 50 basis point is the base case, right? So then that gives the market like some much needed information in terms of like, in May, what are we pricing in? I think 50 basis points is all but priced in right now. And so with the Fed speakers that continue to speak, the guy who spoke today said that 75 basis points he doesn't think will be necessary. So now if the base case is 50 basis points and the market is expecting that, as long as we stay there, anything that isn't a hawkish surprise for 75 basis points is technically okay, right? If they can now come out and say, okay, we're going to do 50, we're going to do 50, everyone expects that, right?
Right.
The only issue we're going to run into, right? The issue we're going to run into if somebody comes up and is like, oh, I'm going to like, push for 75, or like, I think 75 is like a decent idea. Then we're going to get some like pretty decent chop. To Garcia's point, and to your point, Armada, in terms of like everything has been thrown at Bitcoin and it's still sitting at 40K. That is solid. So all these things kind of put together point to, if there is any sort of dovish surprise, which is kind of what I've been saying, right? It's just like everything is so bearish because of the Fed. If they even concede a little bit, if there's even a little bit of a dovish surprise, I think we could really see like a pop in a lot of risk assets. The last thing I'll say is we have both the US dollar index and the 10-year treasury yield at like extreme levels of resistance. If you look at the chart, right? So this is the 5-year chart on the 10-year treasury yield. We are literally right at the 5-year resistance, pretty much. We're right at 3%. So, I mean, and when you see a chart that looks like this, I mean, I know the Fed is supposed to hike a lot this year, but this seems like it's due for a little bit of a pullback, especially from like technical indicator standpoint. I think that could lead to a little bump in BTC, and also the US dollar index. Everyone knows this is like inversely correlated with Bitcoin, right? So this is basically the US dollar strength versus like a bunch of other currencies. And we're also at like 3-year resistance on this, right? So all these things combined for me point to a little bit of a relief rally coming is what I'm thinking. Because if all of this has happened, and if the Fed is basically put itself in a position that like 50 basis points is expected, 75 is going to be the surprise, I feel like we might have a few weeks to like run a little bit here until the May meeting and like kind of see how things develop from there. I know that was a little bit of a mouthful, but those are kind of the things that I'm watching right now.
Yeah, it's almost like all eyes on the Fed, a lot of nervousness. On-chain stuff looks great. Fundamentals look great. It's just a question of what's happening in the macro right now, I think. So I guess hold on to your seats.
And so I don't know if we can pull up these charts, but when you saw what was it 3 years ago when we had the US dollar, like the strength at its highest, pre-COVID, was that also a time when Bitcoin was consolidating, or I guess
I think that was the last time that it was the last time dollar index was that high was back in the last time there were all these rumors in 2018 about the Fed hiking rates and the Fed removing quantitative easing and doing quantitative tightening. Those same rumors that led to basically the equity market crashing like 20-25%. Bitcoin got crushed. All risk assets got crushed in the tail end of 2018. So it's basically a similar story. It was at that point that I think Trump was like really putting the pressure on Powell to like keep interest rates low. And so the Fed kind of backed off. And that's what, that dovish surprise kind of like drove the market into like a very strong 2019, right? That was the last time that it was at that level. We'll see what happens. I think 50 basis points is all but a given at this point. It's going to be looking ahead to June. I think probably 50 in May and 50 in June is what they might end up doing.
Interesting. And when should we look for that Fed meeting, that Fed announcement in May?
I think it's like May 3rd.
May 3rd.
Is it
Does it have it on
early?
that chart? Does it have it on that list that you had pulled up, Sean?
It should be on that.
I was under the impression that it was later in May, but let me see.
I think that's something where, maybe if we don't have a normal episode cadence around that time, we could do an emergency pod just to kind of cover it.
I think you're right. FOMC meeting. FOMC meeting May 3 and 4. Wow. So it's actually like not that far away.
Yeah.
Not far at all.
Usually they have it. Usually they have it kind of in the middle of the middle of March. Oh man. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, that I guess that's kind of my biggest question. Like it's really, really hard for me to understand like what is priced in and like if we've corrected enough to adjust for like the 50 basis points or the 70. I mean, I guess if 50 is the base, right? Then anything above that would be somewhat of a surprise for the market, which is never good. But at the same time, like it's hard to tell if that's still going to shock people or not. And like if we have enough time to go on a run between now and May like 3rd, but it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's about a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I think the other point too is that, the interest rate isn't the only tool that the Fed can use to kind of change sentiment or make corrections. We talk about some of the other stuff that's on their balance sheets when you're talking about like the trillions of dollars of mortgage-backed securities that they've accumulated over the past years. And so I'm sure a few other their balance sheet probably better. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, probably better than
I wouldn't say that. Say that, but yeah. They have a lot. They have a lot.
So it'll be interesting to see, how the perception is. If maybe they have the 50 basis points hike, but then they have more dovish remarks to how they're going to unwind that portfolio. So
that's a good point.
Print more.
Right. Print more money, baby.
No thanks. That's why we got Bitcoin, everybody.
Exactly.
Can't make more Bitcoin.
Yep.
How'd you get that inflation?
To the moon, baby.
Hopefully one day we'll see. Not right now. It's running with those risk assets. It seems like stocks did well today. Bitcoin and some of the alts did well today.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So.
speaking of alts, I think we plan to cover Stack and StackOS, right, Saham? We can
Yep.
dive into the
revisiting StackOS
yeah.
for our loyal Stack fans out there.
Yeah, and they had their recent AMA, which I think we can all remember on a couple episodes ago. We were praying that we could, hear some announcements or at least transparency from the team. So yeah, I'll let you kind of take it away and run through what your big takeaways were from it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, couldn't have said it better than Ev just said it. I feel like on a previous episode where we covered Stack, I was practically on my hands and knees begging for them to communicate with us in some way, shape, or form. And I guess they did answer our prayers, and they did have an AMA. And honestly, it was so needed and so helpful. And I'm really, really glad that they did that. So I think kind of going back to the last time we covered Stack, a lot of the issues that we had around how the team handled the launch of the nodes was just the lack of transparency, the lack of communication, that just went along with that and kind of just caused a lot of confusion amongst the community. What the AMA did was give a complete outlet for the entire community to go in and just talk directly to the CEO and have all the questions answered. So that was really good. I think a couple of key takeaways that I had. First, a few actual developers and highly technical people hopped on to the AMA and were ecstatic because they have actually used StackOS to deploy their applications, and they said it was working fantastically. So hearing that from the developer community is obviously a great sign. The second thing, in terms of communication, what I really liked about how Vishnu handled it was he was really receptive of it and understood and kind of took accountability for the fact that, yes, they're understaffed, but they can definitely do a better job with the communication. So with that, it was good to see, maybe I think within a week or so of the AMA, they actually did release this, node portal help center. It was one of the things that the community had brought up, in terms of things that we were kind of left in the dark on. It's you launched the nodes, but then there was no actual official, guidance and official help guide to how to set it up, walking through it, frequently asked questions, all of those things weren't necessarily established officially by the team. And so this was really good to see that they put this out pretty much, within a week of the AMA. So they really listened to, the feedback that they got and got this together. So, here you have a step-by-step guide on how to deploy your Stack NFTs along with videos, as well as a lot of community kind of collected NFT and maintenance FAQs, as well as just general node portal FAQs, which are super helpful. So just the fact that they were able to put this together just shows that, they're really, listening to the community, and it's great to see. And definitely, long overdue, but it's great to see that they actually, took that into account and got it done. So that was one thing on the communication. The second thing I think was, they talked about hiring communications people, as well as there were questions about marketing, right? Marketing has been, a lot of people wonder, this is such a great idea, this is such a great product, and they actually have customers. They're so much further along than a lot of, crypto or Web3 projects in general. Why does nobody really know about these guys, right? And so what was good to see, and I personally thought it was bullish, is they responded by basically saying comms and marketing are a priority, and that they're hiring people to do those things, professionals to do those things. They're also going to be reaching out to YouTubers, to I guess, do partnerships with or something. If anybody from the StackOS team hears this, we would be happy to assist with any YouTube activities that you guys may need.
Absolutely.
But that was great to see. And then
And I think the other thing there too, Soham, is that
mhm,
their main customer base that they're going to be marketing to are developers, right? Teams that are going to be deploying on their infrastructure, and so that might not be the typical Coinbase user, OpenSea NFT buyer. And so that's also the difficult part, I'm sure, on their side, is that they're going to have to find unique channels to get to the developers, and it's a pretty niche community when you're building decentralized applications. So I'm sure they've got a different approach than some of the other cloud, like standard cloud providers would take.
mhm, mhm. And I think kind of the last thing that he left off with was that while marketing is important and they're like making it a priority, he really wants this to be a ground up organic project, and their main focus, like beyond anything else, is always going to be the technology, right? And their goal is to be one of the most successful projects in crypto, and that's going to happen from building from the ground up. And that's kind of where he left it, which honestly I respect, right? Like, I think
No,
Garcia
I
in a
mean, I think that's
previous episode had like kind of mentioned how a lot of projects are sometimes over indexed on like one thing or another. And at the end of the day, you definitely want a project that, if you're going to be over indexed on anything, you want them to be over indexed on like the actual project and the technology, versus just like selling some pipe dream of nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. I think the realization that marketing and everything like that is going to be needed, and right, that presence outside of the product is going to be needed, and that networking is going to be needed, is great. But I love them coming back and saying, hey, this is why we're here. We're not going to make this cloudy. Like, this is exactly why we want to do this and what we're doing. We're going to try to do everything else that you guys are saying. We've gathered your feedback. We're going to respond to that, and we understand that. But this is really the core of our project. And I really love that, because in the crypto space, I mean, most of the stuff is rug pulls, garbage, if you will, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, it's good to see. The reason I think all of us are here is because we're super interested in what that could mean for the future and the technology itself. So I love to see projects going back to that and making sure that although we have everything checked, all the boxes checked when it comes to all these other pieces, in the end, the technology, the product, what you're working towards is the most important. So I really love to hear that. I actually was Stack the one where you pulled up the web page where they had the number of projects deployed on it?
Yep.
Is that the one
Yeah.
as well? Do you have an update on that as well? That would be really
Let's
cool to
see.
see what that changes.
They have it right on their main page. So let's see. We should be able to.
I forget what it was before.
I think it was
Okay, it was like 500 or 600. I mean, it says
Yeah,
1400
good
right
amount.
now. I don't know how it went to
That's a lot.
1400, honestly.
Maybe
yeah.
they just update it.
I'm gonna have to
incrementally.
I'm sure some of those maybe aren't too complex of projects, but that's
yeah.
impressive. That's
Project's a project, baby.
impressive. But I think
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing is, because of that, because of that one-click deployment that you're able to do on their platform, where you can easily take your project within one click, have it hosted on either on their servers, then that's really impressive. It's easy for a junior developer to want to be able to gain distributed networks experience and use StackOS to do that. So that's awesome. I think one concern, and we chatted about this in the last or before we started this, but a lot of their data centers are centralized cloud providers like AWS, GCP. That's Google Cloud, what is the P for? Platform, in Azure. And, really when you look at their tech and how they're able to differentiate themselves, it's through these 1,000 accounts and being able to easily switch their data between different user accounts in AWS. And I think this is something where they've obviously seen really quick success. They've got 1,400 applications already running on their platform. I think the biggest question mark for me, or something where I'd love to hear them address it in their next AMA, is how they are differentiating themselves from another player that can come in and integrate with AWS, integrate with GCP, Azure very quickly. Because when you look at this, this isn't from first take crazy it's not a crazy technological advance. It's not some innovative new solution. They're able to just kind of aggregate their data across these different centralized clouds. So I think in their next AMA, I would love to hear their system of how they're moving data between accounts, and maybe seeing that as their proprietary advantage that they have against other people that come into this market. Because everybody uses AWS, everybody uses Google Cloud. So I'd love to see kind of like a differentiator of why they would beat out a newcomer in this market.
So question, so can you pull that up again?
Yeah, sorry.
So it says, for example, there will be thousands account holders on AWS, GCP, and data centers to provide compute. So if you're a company right now, do you have to like choose one of those?
No, they do it on their backend.
What do you mean they?
StackOS.
No, not, I'm just talking without StackOS.
Just in general, without Stack.
Just in general.
You would choose one, right? And then you would
you choose
you
one?
could do multiple.
If you're a large enough enterprise organization that has, that really your customers value the trust of you being able to hold on to their data securely and always be able to service them when you need to, you would split your customers' data across these clouds. And then also probably create a few data centers of your own so that your data is distributed across different, cloud providers. You wouldn't want AWS to go down and all your customers' data to go down. You would want some to be held in Google Cloud so that you could have that to access.
I see. So that's if you're like huge enterprise grade.
It's
as
expensive.
as a smaller player, you're probably choosing one of these.
Yeah, and that's a great
which means you're basically entirely exposed if one were to, mess up or at some point. So I guess this maybe could be like almost like a, what do you guys call it in account executive world? Like small medium business or
SMB.
something. SMB. It's like SMB targeting almost, like it would be very useful for like companies in that space. Instead of having to just go with one of them, maybe they can, deploy here and basically
and have access to all of them essentially.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you brought up something I didn't even think about, which is like, I've kind of noticed this too, that there's like a big gap between like the people that can actually afford to go from on-premise to cloud, like from a data center to the actual like cloud providers, so GCP, Azure, AWS. And so like there's this huge gap between people who get, because you need like a team to actually run those and then also implement, migrate. Like it could take 2 years to migrate from a data center to the cloud. Right. And it's like hundreds, actually thousands of hours of like software engineers' time, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So like you have a lot of these people that are like, well, like we love the idea of moving to the cloud. It's probably better, but like it just doesn't make sense. Like fiscally, it's not doable. So like this could actually kind of harness that like medium, like small medium, kind of how we were saying, like area of folks that actually want to migrate to the cloud. So that's a great point that you brought up.
Yeah, and I think this is something where we could see it being a rival to something like Heroku.com, which is essentially, I wish I had a screenshot I could share of this, but essentially what it is exactly what StackOS, but for a centralized service. It solely lives on AWS, but you aren't required to determine how much gigabytes you want to use, how much RAM you want to use for your application. But I think another point, and we see it with FluxOS, which I don't know if we've chatted about, but that's more a network that's being hosted on personal computers, that StackOS is opening up or allowing people to become a node operator within their system. So I think that's going to be another interesting distinction that they have. One, how many node operators they're going to allow in their network, but also the type of hardware that they can run. Because they're running on AWS, GCP, you know, these enterprise level cloud providers, is it something where they're going to allow me to run my node on a personal computer, or is that performance not enough and are going to require me to be on a centralized cloud provider? So I think those are questions that we can answer or ask in the AMA, and hopefully
the next one looks like
Yeah.
we've got a few.
Yeah.
get some clarity on that.
I think this has been brought up. Ev, you brought it up a little bit ago, and I've heard it brought up online and in the Discord and stuff, but the relative valuations. Can you remind us, like, the relative valuations on market cap in terms of where we're at with Flux versus Stack? I think Stack sitting around 20 or 25 million market cap at the moment.
Yep. And so, yeah, just talking numbers. So if we were to pull up the Flux coin market cap, you would see Flux sitting at around, I think, 300 million, 340 million. So it's, you know, around 12 times larger than Stack's market cap. The thing I will say about Flux is that it has been around much longer. It dates back to the beginning of 2021, or actually, let's see how far we can go back. Oh, wow. Sorry, 2018. And, you know, for a while, you can see that it wasn't gaining a ton of traction. And I know if StackOS is kind of coming up in a different crypto world where Bitcoin isn't $1,000, it's $40,000. But yeah, I think it's still got some maturing to do, and I assume that StackOS, in like the stage that it's in, how many months has it been out for? You know, maybe 6 months tops.
No, it's actually been out. I think this team has been building for quite some time. Well, let me see on their website. But I think like their token and the nodes obviously are very okay. Here's can you let me share for a second?
Yep.
So here's on their website, their journey. Seems like they started in 2018, but that was their initial, I guess they started as this, and then they rebranded in mid 2020 to StackOS. And I guess we can see their roadmap.
Yeah, I got to get me some Stack for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like it's at least worth
I haven't even
dabbling in. Not financial advice, but
Do your own research.
interesting. Oh, I actually haven't seen this. This is their, I guess, full like roadmap and how far they are along with each of these like checkpoints.
Yeah.
that's really
That's
cool.
it's kind of sick. Yeah, Polygon integration done, obviously. Analytics
Get to see their Jira
dashboard,
dashboard.
NFT marketplace, Node NFT
This is
smart
really
contracts.
cool. I really like this transparency.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess you just have to dig around.
Players.
Yeah, I guess you just have to dig around and find it yourself.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen this. It's so funny.
Yeah, like
And I
that's
guess
like
they
that's like a
have-
perfect real-time example of like something that I'm sure like the community would have loved if they just like tweeted that out or put it in Discord, like really, really accessible. Like they probably would have loved that.
Yeah.
I think they
I
need
didn't know
that
about
Soham
it.
as a
And I
mod.
absolutely loved it. Yeah. Hire Soham.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, community manager. There
I
you
don't
go.
think, I'm not sure if
Unreal.
this is, I'm not sure if this has
so
been
you-
updated,
You
but
mind if I show just kind of one last point to
oh yeah, go for it, man.
running through
I was
there?
just exploring.
Let me go ahead and present my screen real quick. And so I guess kind of the one last point we had around AWS, or I had around AWS and GCP centralized services, is that there's a lot of things in crypto and Web3 that run on, you know, these centralized clouds. You can go through this 2020 Decrypt article. It talks about how around 24% of nodes in the Ethereum network run on AWS. And so I think it's something where, you know, we're not going to see StackOS take out AWS. I know they say they're the or AWS for Web3, but there's different angles that you can definitely take within this cloud infrastructure service. And I think that point of you saying, you know, this could be a great option for small businesses that want to be able to have enterprise level, you know, data backups, but aren't able to pay those fees, or moving from on-prem to, you know, cloud providers. Like there's a lot of niches in this market. And so I think the final point was that we're not going to see AWS go away. I think Jeff Bezos is still going to stay rich, but there's going to be a lot of other ways it can be used within Web3.
Yeah, and I think that it's really cool just to think of like even if StackOS captured like the smallest percentage of what AWS's revenue is, it'd be massive. Like AWS does like 20 billion a quarter, more than that sometimes, in terms of like revenue. Like they're, you know, 50 to 70 billion dollars just AWS revenue in a year.
They only get,
you know?
30 to 40% of the market, you know. And
Yeah,
it's a 150 200 billion dollar annual market. So yeah, it's a great point. So, yeah.
Well, you probably know that better than me, but like a lot of these companies, especially like SaaS companies, like a huge portion of their budget is directed towards like
Huge
cloud provider spend. So even if like, that's another thing that StackOS maybe can latch onto, but
Yep.
yeah, big market.
I guess the last thing, let me pull up the chart, see what we're working with here. Maybe Sia, you can give us a little bit of a TA outlook. I got the 20-day moving average on here, and so it looks like we had a close like just kissing the top of it. I don't know if that's necessarily like a bullish short-term indicator. Sometimes you get like a bounce off the 20-day moving average, but that's about all I'm seeing. Obviously, we talked about this whole debacle here when the nodes launched, and we've come down and we kind of bounced right off here. I mean, this was like sub 20 million market cap over here. So
when did they hold
pretty
that
big,
AMA?
Pretty big, literally right here.
Oh, okay. Literally. Okay. I was gonna
Nice.
say it as a time, right? Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little transparency you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was right around here. It was somewhere in here. I think this may have been like remember I messaged you guys when I was on vacation. I was like, damn, I log off for a day and like the market crashes. I think this might have been that day, but like this or something. One of these, like I think it was this green candle. There was like the day of the AMA, there was a massive green candle. I remember it. I'm just like, yeah, that adds up. That adds up.
Makes sense.
But I think they launched that. I think one of these was the AMA, and then right after they dropped this, the help center guide. That was, I think, this right here. So there were some big buys coming in like after that. And so now it looks like we kind of got rejected off the 20-day and came down, and now it looks like we're slightly above it. So What were you saying, Sia?
I was gonna say I'm sure that like a lot of people were kind of waiting on the sideline saying, okay, is this, could be, because I think Motto was making the point before, like majority of the projects you get into could be rugs or like scams or something. So I wonder if people were kind of like, even though like it's a super legit project, the doubt always creeps in for investors, like, hey, like, the uncertainty, they haven't even told us what's going on, like, what's kind of going on in terms of like the project's future and all that kind of stuff. So even like being transparent a little bit, like you said, Ev, kind of just changes the game.
Yeah. And I think it would be pretty big just because so even with you not having to have, we talked about how you needed to have to hold stake to mint your NFT. And then, it turns out you could just use stable coins to easily buy that NFT and not have to have that exposure to the stack coin. I mean, that's one thing for NFT.
But to be clear, if you do use stables, it does buy the stack in the market.
Right. But then it immediately buys the NFT, correct?
Yeah, it uses the, let's say you use USDC,
Yeah.
it buys stack in the market and then uses that stack to get the NFT.
But that type of model is something that, maybe NFT holders might throw fits because of it. But if you're a developer trying to run a payroll, and your business is being exposed to the fluctuations of stack, that's not something that's going to look or do wonders to your balance sheet. So being able to create that type of user experience for, the developers on StackOS that have to pay for their resources through Stack, that's something that they can, like, having a little transparency there would also help that other customer group that they have.
For sure. And I think one thing on the AMA that I asked that I was happy with the response was, I asked if, doing these AMAs either on like a monthly basis or something would be something that they would consider, and they were very open to it. So definitely for the listeners, as well as, us over here, I think, Evan, you have like a lot of really good questions to ask. We'll be keeping our eye out for the next AMA coming up, hopefully in, a couple weeks or something like that.
Definitely. Yeah. And the listeners, let us know if you guys are interested in checking out StackOS. I think that's something else that we could dive into and see if it's comparable or, a totally different platform than what StackOS is.
Sweet. So yeah, that's pretty much all we had on StackOS. Anything going on in the NFT world nowadays that's of interest? What have you guys been looking at?
Yeah, so like the most recent news was on like obviously the Moonbirds mint. They did $75 million in volume in like the first few hours of their mint, and then they did $280 million in sales volume the 2 days after that. So they were close to, they were $350-400 million in total volume of sales, which is a record.
Why was that such a hyped project?
So apparently, and Evan actually might know more than me, but apparently they spent like months building like the traction for this. And it's actually a group called Proof Collective, where they like own a couple other projects, but this is like their first real foray into like NFTs. And so apparently there was a lot of hype leading up to it. And like the team is like doxed, like at least most of the team is doxed. And so that's like super rare in terms of NFTs that are just minting. Usually that happens after. So I think based on who was behind it, like Proof Collective has like a big, big weight in terms of like a name in the space. So I think that kind of led to it. And then it just got like FOMO mania. I think like when some people saw it go from like 2.5 to 8 in like a couple hours, and then from 8 to, 15 Ethereum, and then 15 to 25, like people just kind of were getting a little, the FOMO drug is pretty crazy.
Yeah. And
so was it an all-out gas war to mint this?
I think it was mostly whitelist, so I don't think it was a gas war. I think if there were any leftover public, absolutely, it's a massive gas war. You could pay 4 ETH for it, but looking back, hindsight's 2020. Looking back, that's amazing. You pay 2 ETH in gas and 2.5 for the thing, and you're
Quick
you know
2x.
right now they're sitting at 20 ETH, but
Yeah. And so like a little context on the people behind this. So Kevin Rose was the founder of Dig, which back in like the early Web 2 days, Dig was the main Reddit competitor. And basically after like a few years, Reddit finally beat them out. But Kevin runs like a podcast called Proof.xyz, where he has a lot of NFT artists come on and talk through. It's actually a good way to learn about new collections, or if you hear news about any, I'm sure he's got them on and you can get a better background on what they do. But yeah, they've been in the Web3 space for a while now. And I wish I would have known about, I mean, not that I would have been able to hop in, but it would have been nice to know about that coming down the line.
Interesting. So have they released any sort of roadmap or anything on like what exactly, like what benefits do holders of this NFT get, or is it just like straight up for clout?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I haven't done like a ton of research, but I think as of now, like it's more so right now it's pretty much for clout. Like I think that they'll probably release a roadmap here, in the next week or two, and actually like lay out some stuff. But I think at least as of now, I know that it's likely for clout, but then the Proof like collective, like since this is the first NFT for Proof collective, there's probably going to be a lot of, there's a lot of anticipated value with it that I guess hasn't really been released yet, is kind of the idea. Because like the Proof collective NFT, which what's his name again? Was it Keith or Kevin? Kevin, which Kevin Rose started as well. So like the Proof collective NFT is like 100 ETH floor price, and that one gives you like access to all these different projects and like in real life events, all this kind of stuff. And that
it's at 100 ETH.
It's at 100 ETH, yeah.
Oh,
last time I checked.
But
what the hell?
So like all the Proof collective,
yeah, its floor price is 83 ETH.
Oh yeah, I guess
there's only 1,000 of them. I guess there's only 1,000 of them.
And
that's ridiculous.
He's always got like very prominent Web 2 founders on his podcast, like Alex Ohanian, who started Reddit, Jack Dorsey, other like big Web 2 names. He's very well connected. So there's like a real community behind this stuff.
Yeah, and like this is like it's like meant to be like a private group of like people who are all in the same spot, like exchanging. So like, I mean, if you're in Proof, you're hearing about NFT collections and Web3 projects that are, quarters out, but you're going to be the first to, hear about it or get in on it or whatever the case may be. So that's what Moonbirds is, the first like NFT collection done by Proof Collective. And Proof Collective is just the NFT that represents like the private group that he's created. If that makes
what
sense.
The fuck? This shit was at 2 ETH in the middle of December.
That's crazy.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Dang, dude. Where's that alpha, Evan? We should.
Where's the alpha, bro? Find the alpha and give it to me.
Wait, so that would be, if we just do the quick math, that's 6,000 turns into 260,000 in a couple months.
Not so bad.
That's pretty good.
Sometimes you just gotta laugh. Sometimes you just gotta laugh. Like,
yeah, for those ones, there's 1,000 rug pulls out there.
Exactly.
I was gonna say.
Exactly.
But hey, that's probably over 1,000x. So maybe you'd probably get your money back after that.
Yeah. Get rugged 1,000 times and then you get 1,000x. There you go. That's funny. That's funny. But yeah, that's been kind of the big NFT news, and like people are kind of saying like it's a really it's almost like a weird event because people they didn't think that there was that much liquidity right now in the NFT space because it was kind of getting pretty slow. And then all of a sudden, there's $350 million of Ethereum, being showered onto this one project. So people are just kind of like, where did that come from? Is it new buyers? Is it, overall interest is changing. Like, I don't know if that's the case, but that's something I'll definitely have to do more digging on.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be interested if any of the other people in NFT World's Discord or something like that has insight on that, because you're right, it could be sentiment is changing, or NFT buyers are getting smarter. You're starting to see some of the basic type collections where you've got child NFTs coming out of it, or good staking rewards. Maybe that's no longer the main interest, and they really want to be able to be a part of a strong community, strong docs community. So yeah, maybe we're seeing a shift in the NFT community.
That's a good point.
It's interesting just thinking about when you're talking about the question of, is it new buyers? Is it people who just had a lot liquid who want to be a part of this community? It brings up, like, I think we had discussed, I was talking to you guys maybe a few episodes ago on like when the market is going up and it's a bull market, it's kind of like PVE, right? Like player versus environment, where like kind of everyone is winning, and like there's a bunch of new people coming into the space, like a bunch of new money inflowing, and just kind of everyone's winning. And like how that's kind of evolved as the market has kind of gone into a little bit of downturn over the last few months, into like more of a PvP like type arena, where like there's not that much new money coming in. It's like the same money kind of rotating in between narratives. And that I've seen that a ton in like the DeFi and basically the DeFi space right now is like a lot of just PvP. There's not like a whole lot of new people coming in. I think a lot of people lost a lot of money over the last like few months. So it's like basically anybody who's survived is just like, kind of just rotating and like dumping on each other basically. It seems like the NFT space is like a little bit less so than that. It seems like the NFT space probably, still attracts some, for lack of a better term, like less seasoned like investors and stuff like that. Would you say that? Like there's still potential for a lot of new money to come into NFTs over like DeFi, which is inherently more complicated and higher barrier of entry.
And you mean like
I'd probably say
retail
so.
money as like when you say new money? Yeah.
Yeah, either, I mean, it's tough to say because a lot of people in crypto are retail technically, but like when you think about like the stock market, like institutional versus retail, is like a ton of people in crypto are technically retail, but there's like the group that like knows what's going on, and there's the group that doesn't. There's the group that basically like was doing the dumping on Time Wonderland, and there's the people who were like, hold it forever, like so like
Yep.
and like all those people probably lost a good amount of money, right?
I think
So
that's a good point. I think like this could be something where Kevin Rose is ahead in Web3. Like he knows people, and it could be something where this money was stuff that was sitting on the sidelines that could only be activated by a certain head like that. So
there were rumors of that people were lined up like essentially ready to buy it, where he has a lot of connections that are wealthier people or investment funds or like people that saw a good opportunity in this and that he pitched them. But hopefully he'll come out and do like a podcast about it and just like recap Moonbirds and like what's going on. And but to your point, so I think like there is still room for new money. Like I think we're still talking about only like 1 million or so active wallets, maybe even less, trading NFTs on Ethereum. So like that is not that many. And if
is that right?
If Coinbase, it's gone down a little bit recently. I want to see if I can find the.
Yeah, where do you see that? That's kind of like a useful stat to keep track of.
Dune Analytics. Dune Analytics is what I use.
Oh, it's on Dune. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know is there like a pre-made, somebody made a dash or something?
Exactly. So it's sorry. So I misspoke. I was thinking like hundreds of millions in USD volume, 400 to 500K active wallets. So like even smaller. So let me share the screen here.
Really?
Yeah, so monthly this is monthly active, so it's not, so this is sorry, this is the number I was thinking of. Total OpenSea traders over time. So it's like just a little well, I guess this is 1 million. This is 1.5 million. So that's total traders of all like overall, but this is active monthly traders, and that's probably floating around 350K ish.
Registered users who have made at least one transaction. Oh, interesting.
It takes off like in beginning of 2021, and then Bored Apes like right here, somewhere here. So like, you have to be super, super early into just NFTs in general, and then you have to have the foresight to buy a certain project, so it's like, it's definitely tough, but like daily volume's been pretty steady as well. But I would definitely recommend checking out Dude Analytics. We can drop this in the description below, but a lot of pre-made dashboards for stuff like that.
That's a pretty interesting stat.
Like if Coinbase NFT enables the thing that they say they're going to enable, which is like buying via credit card and buying via checking account, like where essentially like with the Stack thing, where if you buy it in stables, it automatically buys it in Stack. It would do the same for Ethereum, where you could just say, okay, with my Coinbase wallet, with one transaction, I have enough to buy this NFT. I buy it right from Coinbase Marketplace. Boom, I have it. If that, because like right now, the biggest thing is like, you got to download MetaMask. You got to understand your seed phrase stuff. You got to do all the stuff to get onboarded. So, I mean, I think that could be a big lowering of the barrier.
Catalyst, yeah.
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 I wonder if that's like a lot smaller than I thought it would be.
It's not that many people. It's a really, really small amount of people. To have only 1.5 million people total all time have traded on OpenSea, that's
compared to
that to
that they've got.
Yeah, exactly. But then compare that to like a year ago.
Right.
So
right.
And I think that's something where, when we look at least I looked up Llamaverse the other day, and I think
Danny's killing it.
yeah. Well, see, I think you said that NFT Llama. He's also like somewhat of ahead in the space. He's a guy that people know, and this thing has just popped in the last couple months here, or last couple weeks, honestly. And I feel like you're starting to see projects like consolidation between these, solid projects. People moving money to areas where they don't want to be in these 40 different projects.
Yep.
Just hoping that they go to the moon. They want to be in these strong communities that are going to stick it out through, if we go through rough times coming up here. And when you look at these NFTs, they are communities. So you want to be able to have somebody at the helm that's going to be able to keep it running and keep it strong. So it could be another reason why Kevin Rose was able to make his stuff pop.
No, that's a good point. And I feel like you guys were talking about, where we were all talking about, like utility's been kind of like rotated, like a bunch of these people are doing staking and all this kind of stuff. So you have to figure out a different way to keep people engaged in the community. And so what made Llamaverse so unique is that it's basically catered to people who like to trade like crypto and NFTs. So like when you own a Llamaverse, part of the like perks are like getting like free trading tools, like where you actually like get like one of the, I forgot the exact name of the analytical tool, but it's like $400 a month worth of analytics, like trading software that you just get for free because you own it, things like that, where it's a very, very specific use case where it's like people who are in the community want that, they like it, and they're going to stick around for it. Right. And I think that's why that price has popped, is because everyone's getting a ton of value out of it. They trust, NFT Llama has like almost 200,000 Twitter followers. Like he's big. And so I think there's a couple elements in there that I think make a good community, but that was a good point, Ev.
Thanks, man.
That is interesting. Yeah, it's like I've seen it be kind of a double-edged sword though, right? Like if you put an actual dollar value behind what you're providing,
That's true.
Because then
That's true.
because then you're actually able to ascribe what the value of your NFT should be. Like I feel like a lot of the crazy valuations you see on these NFTs is because there really is no value to it at the moment. Right.
That's fair.
Like the moment you're just like, oh yeah, you get this that's worth $400 a month, then you get this that's worth, I don't know, $100, and you got this, then all of a sudden like people can start backing into like what it's actually worth in like USD terms, and then the upside maybe gets a little bit like hindered. But I guess it hasn't happened for Llamaverse, so I guess people believe in their roadmap and like where they're going, and the fact that they're going to be able to produce more value for the holders in the future.
Absolutely.
Just a thought. Just a thought.
No, I think you're right on. There's definitely a double-edged sword with that.
Awesome. Well, I think that was talking NFTs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think pretty much at time. So we can wrap it up here. As always, to the listeners, thank you so much. We will be back again, same time, same place next week. Stay tuned for episode 9. As always, if you found this useful in any way, if you found it entertaining, hit the like button, subscribe button, and make sure to comment. We got a lot of really good comments on the previous StackOS video, so definitely let us know what you guys think of the AMA and how we broke it down, and what you're excited for StackOS moving forward. Yeah. So till next time, signing off. As always, wag me.
Adios.
Later.